let's break through competitions, folks. We're going to break this down step by step, from second division Europe through and up to like Champion Europe and whatnot. So second division Bundesliga, we'll work through the leagues here. Second division Bundesliga, for me, for what I've seen and read so far, notes wise, goalie wise, it's certainly going to be an interesting one goalie wise, because like the likes of Kevin Mueller obviously is now in the actual Bundesliga, so I think anyone that has Heidenheim players will find that handy for Champion Europe, but not so much really in terms of what to expect, because I think they're going to find it maybe a reality shock maybe. But for what I've seen in my notes so far, the likes of Lind, Drews, Marcus Kolke, Kastenmeier, they seem to be the ones, and Karl Klaus, these ones, from what I'm seeing at the moment, Kastenmeier especially, I think it's going to be the most common, he's going to be one of the most common goalies for like second division Europe, Germany squad. Like anyone that runs like a Bundesliga-esque, like second Bundesliga-esque squad, he might be your primary goalie. Like, and the stats kind of show it, 90s and 70s and 80s. Yes, there's a lot of 30s and 40s thrown in, but he's a very consistent goalie, and I would say definitely worth getting. Zieler, I'm not sure his situation with Hanover, I'm not sure if he's staying or not, but if he does stay, then be interesting. Hamburg, like Fernandez has potential to do well for you as well, but same problem that I think a lot of the teams are going to face is who stays, who goes, because they obviously just missed out through the playoffs. Defensively, challenge with I would say, and if I'm actually honest, St. Pauli could be the team to go for next season. I know quite a few people are going Pacarada very heavily in their squads, and he's literally going to be what a lot of teams are built up on. He is pretty much Mr. Consistent in the divisions, like squads for this. Like gets you good assists, returns them. If my memory serves, that was one assist there, and this should be another one. Yeah, he pretty much will get you assists. He is like £7 still now, but with him confirmed that he will stay, if you can get him for £7, I would say good potential throughout the season to do you well. But he is, I think in most people's eyes, the card that a lot of people will rely on as part of like the main crux of their defence. Marco Jean, I believe goes back somewhere. I'm sure it's his primary team. Could be wrong, or have I got him confused with somebody else? No, if not, I haven't. It's fine, because it's not changed yet. But yeah, Marco Jean, second half of the season, really that last month of the season where it showed the form of old that he showed pre-World Cup, that kind of brought people interested in him, because I'm trying to remember whose notes I initially read with players to watch for this season, and he was one, and people were like, who is this kid? And it was like November, it was like the month where people really started to then be like, this kid, very good all round scorer. That is what he builds his game on. He's probably one of the best AA players usually, for what I've seen last season. Like, he even got an assist in a last man tackle, and he still only scored 79, so he had a bad all round game. But he adds assists to his game, and that's what makes all the difference. Yes, he'll have some bad game for all round assists, all round scorers, but his AA is usually very, very strong, and if you're getting for £4, I'd probably feel confident in him. Like Jordi Devise is another one that's going to be an interesting one, because I remember owning him thanks to one of the lads, Steph, in his Discord. Steph bought him in prep from his injury. I made good profit for him, and like, he's just not happened really. His last few games form was starting to pick up a wee bit, but I don't know if Fortuna's going to persevere with him or what. But yeah, it's like when you have a bad injury, it just kind of ruins you, like anything. But Fortuna for me, like Fortuna, St. Pauli, I feel could be the two main teams that you constantly see next season. Maybe with Hamburg, defensively, where there's like a good, like solid return to be had out of the league, as it were. Louis Schwab, I'm not sure his situation, if he's staying, going, whatnot. I'm sure he's still got like about a year left in his contract. Might be wrong, but that last month was form of old. Like Louis Schwab, still young enough to where he should be in his, not necessarily his twilight, his prime, sorry, get it right. But 5 goals, 5 assists. If he was to produce that form, especially at this state, like at the start of a season, it would make all the difference. Because what was it? In the end of the last month of the season, he ended up with a grand sum of 2 goals and 2 assists. That keeps anyone consistently going. They're pretty much averaging 60 for the last 5. We'd like that all the time. But in terms of like midfield, obviously don't touch BFL because they got relegated to the 3rd tier. But for me personally, from a midfield perspective, Hanover, I think Hanover can't do any worse than they did last season. St. Pauli again, I'll be honest, St. Pauli stacks could be very, very common next season. Like, I feel they have, like, not necessarily just a team that's going to compete for promotion, but I think they have a very well balanced team in general, and it makes all the difference. Like Holston Kiel might be up there next season. Like Stephen Skribisk, I can never pronounce his name right. Like, he is one of these players, like, even though his stats here, there's like cold spells there, but he pretty much had a very impressive like goal and assist return. It gives me 15 goals, 4 assists. One of the top scorers in the division, and what makes all the more important is that he was a mid. His cards are mid, so if this was a forward card, I'd imagine he'd be selling for a lot more. And yeah, it's like take advantage while you can, because I think if he does stay next season, especially if everything kind of clicked, because it didn't click from when he's like a couple of years in the Bundesliga, but if he does stay, he is another one of those mids. Like Holston Kiel will be heavily relying on him to produce the goods for next season, but like, I'm not personally touching him simply because I try and keep away from the second Bundesliga, even though I do know my way around it. Obviously forwards wise gets tricky because your challenge that you have is who's actually going to be playing, but also who's actually still going to be their team, because obviously like Kleindenst, he's obviously went up with Heidenheim. Sika, if he stays at Magdeburg, I would say, or if he stays in the second Bundesliga, I should say, is the interesting one, because 8 assists, 5 goals, pretty steady, not the best return, but still, like, people are demanding too much. Like, he's not a 12 quid card now. Obviously the 8 quid that he's selling for is probably realistic. I would say 10 at the very limit is what he should be going for just now. Kolanaki, I'm not sure what's happening with him. I did have a look at his like notes over the weekend, and he's another one in and out. Really, that's his problem. And like 14 goals, 9 assists, great return, no denying it. It's like throughout the season. As I say, they had spells where obviously he wasn't part of the World Cup for Poland, but he had spells post World Cup like where form was a little bit missing at times, and just like if he stays with Fortuna, then it helps, because then they've got a potent option up front. Dompe, I'm not sure if Jean-Luc will be staying or going or what, because I did read something, I think it was last week, that there might be talk of him going, I think it was back to France, but very good for the assists. That's what I've noticed. I've seen a few people have him. It's like Domp, Isid, Iowa. I've seen a few folk have him, and he's steady. He's not spectacular, but he's steady. That's what. But I think people that buy Iowa, those that can't necessarily say afford, like one of your bigger options. Like if you couldn't afford clean dents in the league, for example, or Sika, you just say, "Oh, I'll go and get Iowa. He'll fit the bill." But yeah, that's where I would kind of go with that. Move from there to the Bundesliga itself. Give that some love next. So goalies wise, so obviously this is a Champion Europe situation. Goalie wise, we don't know. Like as far as we believe, Sommer is saying, if Neuer's coming back in, I don't want to be number 2. I want to just go elsewhere. You can just sell me. The question is, where does he go? Does he stay in the Bundesliga? Does he go back to Mönchengladbach? Certainly a debate. Schwab for Cologne, because obviously Horn's away. Like Schwab's problem is he's not a great number 1. That is the problem. I'm surprised he actually, like, if he keeps a clean sheet, he's fine. The problem is he lets you down more times than he does. That game week here was the game week that he cost me badly. And also this week. And also that, in fact, it was that week he cost me, that week I didn't. And then that was the week I meant to put him back in, and I didn't. But yeah, I wouldn't trust Schwab. He's just a bit steep. Augsburg, don't know what's happening with their goalie situation. If Kubek is getting an extended run next season again, or what the situation is with them. Like Pavlenka's another one of the steady, consistent goalies that's in that division. Can't really fault him whatsoever. He's dependable, that's what you want. Ronau's going to be interesting because obviously they've got Champions League commitments next season, so you've got that to factor in. Casteel's another one that's steadily consistent, but obviously Omlin, another one that you've got to kind of be a little wary of. I know with like the relegated teams like Hereford and that, it's who do you kind of keep an eye on. Like Flecken obviously transferred to Brentford. Hradecki, who knows what the situation with him will be. I'd imagine he'll remain number 1 next season. Like he's been there for number 1 for long enough. A question I think a few people will think he's another one that do another team come in and bring another goalie challenge him. Leipzig's challenges Gulaschi and Blaswich. Does Blaswich stay number 1? Does Gulaschi come in and take it? Like Blaswich has been steady, no denying it, and I always feel he's been a steady goalie regardless of where he's been. But see how that plays out. And I say Berman's just another one of these steady, consistent goalies defensively for the Bundesliga. Hector's obviously retired. I love he was 174. He's creeping up. Defensively is going to be an interesting like, it's not who's like a safe shout, it's more who's who's actually going to be playing. Like Hummel should be fine, Schuler should be fine, Hoover's, I think it's like the case of like, who do you feel like comfortable? Like Bornau for like Wolfsburg, and I think that's what's going to be the challenge. Like next season with a few of these teams, like the ones that have European commitments, the ones that don't. Like Robin Knox will be an interesting one next season because of Champions League commitments. Like I assume he'll start, but will he get the league games on top to play, or will he make it? Whoever's in the Champions League squad is priority starting 11 with players that get the league game less, deemed a lot less important maybe. Midfield wise, Kynes, I'm intrigued to see if he can improve on next season. He actually was quite good for a Sorare perspective, but like not good, but like steady good, I would probably be more honest with. But like he's always someone to fall back on. Like others that I've had experience with, like Stoker and Forster, like had like people try and do deals with those cars. Stoker's like good for so rare, but terrible, I think, for like Bochum. Like Bochum are just sadly struggle, and he ended the season just nicely. But as I say, he's one of those cheap options. If he's a 50 plus point, 55 plus point player, you've got half a chance. Lamia, I'm intrigued what form he'll be like. Pardon me, when he goes to Bayern. Wataru Endo, another. How he'll be next season. Scurry, never consistent mid within the league. Yeah, it's kind of becomes a challenge really to kind of say yourself who's dependable, who's not dependable, and like I see some people have like, it's like running stacks, and this is a little bit more harder than running an actual team. Like Bibu, Kramaric, Gurasi's been had a good season. Like Dukes and Fulkrug, like the interesting part for them, will they be as consistent as they were last season? Becker started off hot and then tailed off horribly in the middle, and then like to kind of illustrate how cold they went, it was like basically pretty much near enough to the World Cup. Like he had a cold spell in October and went hot, picked up again just before the World Cup, and then it was basically a cold spell for near enough 2 months, and then he picked up again just briefly. Like that probably was his game of the season against Freiburg, but other than that, it's like that's what you've got to factor in. and I know there's a few teams sniffing about for Becker as well. Marco Richter, I know a few people for second division Europe squads are keen on, because if he stays at Hereford, could be a good points earner. And Kunku, got to at least mention, because how will he do at Chelsea? That's the big question for that. Ritsu for Freiburg. Freiburg in general, how will they do next season with all their respective commitments, and how will they feel with like teams just kind of pinching players off them really. Eredivisie, next league of love and focus, so another Challenge Europe. A good point made by a few people is, because they're now 5th in the coefficient for UEFA, do they become a Champion Europe team, or do they stay Challengers Europe? If they stay Challenger Europe, then I would say this benefits it. If they go Champion Europe, this is probably the one league, I don't mean to sound harsh, could be where people run specific stacks, and that could be like your Ajax, PSV, Feyenoord and Celtic 20. And basically from that, forwards wise here, you're not going to really go for Gladden or anyone that's at Emin or Fortuna, because you don't quite know their circumstances. Like Van Kruij for Sparta is going to be an interesting shout for next season, and if he stays there or goes to a bigger team, like Duvicus, Czerny, even Inogo, Cordoba, like Van Wolfswinkel, despite his veteran age, very consistent in the low points, but then he has periods like where he pops off. Like he went off on like a hot streak for like a month basically, before the World Cup, and then he does have like little spells where it's like, I'll bring a goal here or that. If he was consistent more often, he'd be more than he's worth, let's put it that way. Lauritsen is going to be another of those kind of like popular shouts, I think. Azarkan could be interesting for next season. How, like, where does he go next season after his stint with Excelsior? Because he had a cold spell where it was like, I think it was injury and whatnot, because he only played twice, but he played well on those 2 games. And because he's an under 23 player, he has a lot of upside about him, so that'll make a big difference for those that own him or plan to maybe even him, because I've seen a few people ask me about him. Like I've rated myself for the league, but out with the league, not so sure. As said, Lauritsen's another steady shout, but there's like no shortage of like half decent forwards within the league. It's just a case of game time and who's actually getting that game time. Like Go Ahead could do well next season. It's just a case of like Edvarsson Lundberg, who actually starts for them. Midfield is no shortage of like depth. Like Antonucci's an interesting one, because like the likes of like Volendam, a few of their mids did well in like the latter stage of the season, like that last month or 6 weeks. Like Antonucci's form in Excelsior, like while like the last 4 games for like Volendam were kind of like crucial for staying up, and like Antonucci was somebody I looked at like earlier in the season just to give me depth. Kenzo for Excelsior, another one with upside. Like Warwick, I think with Warwick they're like your cheap side to kind of go with, like Ukele, Anita, Pella Clement. Like you can own like that squad same with like Go Ahead, they're kind of the same. You can pretty much have like Warwick, Go Ahead, Utrecht, Herenveen, and literally have depth. Even you could even kind of go Volendam to an extent, but like defensive mids probably. But you'd find yourself struggling. Also, don't look at Cambuur because they got relegated. Ferrati. We have a love-hate relationship on Sorare. Simply because we owned him, and then he had a hot spell, and then when I tried to get him for one game week, I didn't get him because people that were wanting him, it was like they were wanting £2 when he was like 150, and I was like, nah, I want it. Or sorry, it was like £1. They were wanting 150, and I was like, no. It's like, he's £1. Just pay the pound, accept the pound. But yeah, as I said, Emmen, Cambuur, keep away from because obviously they're relegated. But yeah, it's like even on Groningen, that's the third team to kind of keep away from as well. But the mid-tier teams in the league, you literally can never really go wrong with. It's just, it comes down to your budget, and if you're able to go one of the big teams, then you're laughing off it. Evo Pinto is one of the best value I own, an Evo Pinto. I'm keeping him for now. All my Eredivisie players I'm planning to keep. Ash Coopers will be interesting when he comes back for injury. Vitesse, I'm not sure how they're going to actually do next season. Surely they improve. Can't be any worse than they were last season. Well, they could go down. El Kubi, another consistent defender within the league. Silvis, very consistent. Still has another year left in his contract. I'm hoping he can deliver. Bart Friends we're keeping as well for ourselves. Like, we've got like 4 good scoring defenders within this league. It's just a case of who plays, who doesn't really. Like for foreign, like Gertrude, like the likes of Feyenoord, like whether it be Gertrude or whether it be Vifer, these are players that's like, they're not just like head and shoulders above like the rest of the division, like in Hanchcope, but it's like who from bigger teams is going to look at them. That's what it comes down to. Like Alkmaar, Feyenoord, PSV, Ajax, you're pretty much like set in stone with them goalies for next season. On Vitek is like the positive from a Vitesse point of view. I love his Robin Reuters now 94p. When we got him, he was £1. He served us well. We got him in prep for that game week 340. That was the first game week we got him for. It was like that game. We basically got him from like the Sparta Rotterdam game. I think it was even, in fact, it was even before then, because I actually looked at it before. Was it game week 335 or the biggest mistake I made was not stockpiling him, because we would have been laughing. But we persevered with him for a couple months, but we got out of him just through mainly like that game ruined us, but that was to be expected. I think we got him out just before that game. Like, he served us well, and we made good profit on him, so I can't exactly fault it. But next season, Barkas is the interesting one, because obviously Celtic's trying to get rid, or have got rid, and I'm not sure where he's going. Van Gassel for Excelsior. Could Odds remain the best goalie in the league next season is up for debate. Pander's just too expensive at £30, I feel, but has good under 23 upside about him. Matty Ryan, concern with him is, does he end up in rotation again for someone potentially, or does he remain number 1? Where is Noppert? Ah, there he is. Noppert. Does he go to a bigger team next season, or does he stay at Herenveen? Is the next bit debate as well. Obviously, Marciano's now no longer at Feyenoord. He went back to Hapoel Beersheva. That's where he ended up. So keep that one in mind if you are a Marciano owner, unless you're not concerned about your collections. Chelsea, I assume, will remain at NEC. Like, steady, but he's not, like, it's defensive midfield put in front of him is the biggest concern. If it was me personally, if budget was no option, I'd be looking between Bailau, Unerstal, Walter Benitez or Olic. But if I was playing it safe, I'd probably go Delange or Van Gassel personally. I just feel both of them should kind of like stand you in good stead for next season. So from there we move down to Belgian Pro League. Goalie situation is another one that's up for debate again. Trying to remember who it's. Anderlecht's goalie, and who's the other one that's up for? Oh, Butez. Butez was one that was Verbruggen and Butez. I knew when I'd see the goalies it would ring a bell. And I'd also got asked about who's the other one I got asked about. Who's the other one? I went past them because I know a few people are talking about Bola, maybe keeping him, which I can understand. Bruges is certainly another team up for debate. With I'm assuming Mijanly is going to stay. Unit 34, he should still be dependable. Morris should be fine for USG. I can't remember who they. Oh, it's whoever. Where is it? Upin. That's who the goalie was. Moser. That's who it was. Like, Moser's problem is he gets games. He is like the number one. The problem is, and you see in the second half of the season, but post World Cup form, is Upin's defence just leaked like a sieve. Like when they played Bruges, it was 7-0. Like, that's what just completely just dents any chance you have. 5 against. Like, people rate him, but my concern is because of form like that at the end of the season, people might think, does Upin look at another goalie? And Upin should be looking to be a bit better in the league, there's no denying. But I feel like if funds are no option, like Kuka for Michelin is probably one. Some like Westerlo is like Westerlo, St Truden. I think they're going to be where people consider maybe even Selfs Bruges, I suppose. But yeah, it's going to be fun and games with the Belgian Pro Leagues are one of these leagues where it's it's not how you put it nicely, sorry, that's a lie. It's try to go with consistent dependable players like your Marcelins, Vertonghen's, Vasinski's. Like Vasinski's an interesting one for next season because he's a young lad, you've got a lot of upside about him, and you got a full season under his belt, and like yes, he burst on the end of the 21-22 season, but the end of the season, like for me, like there's definitely like a lot of upside in him, and I think there's not necessarily loads of expectation, but he's someone that I think will excite a few of like the under 23 owners especially. And I think I would be honest in saying this, that under 23s the Pro League is probably the one league I constantly see getting used heavily for it, and I don't know why. Like, either I'm missing something completely, but it's the one league that I constantly see a lot of teams and a lot of discussions in different like discords about, like, whether it be Ndai, whether it be, as I said, Wasinski. Like, Leuven next season, I think, have an exciting squad for next season. I think Leuven, I think a few things might click for them next season. That's my personal. We say that now, and maybe come like next year, it'll be like, yeah, gee, you said that, and Leuven fell apart. Yeah. Midfield wise, Neurstader, the amount of times I've had fun with, like, he's just dependable. Like, if you go for 30-40p, I'd actually say you can't go wrong. I'm not sure if he's still going to be at West Old next season. I've not checked his contract status, if it's this season or next season. I did check earlier, like last night or something, but tries of not always remembering. But like, second half of the season, Mr. Consistent. That's the way I like them. When I was wanting to get him, when was it? World Cup. He was like this price. He was like basically 40p, and I just couldn't get him. Like, there was no supply. I think it was a mix of no supply, or those that had him were wanting £1. I'm like, yeah, sure. Let me pay £1 for a player that's currently selling for 40-50p. Ruud Vormer, just veteran age now these days. Abdoulaye Sissoko, probably another of those lower end bracket for price. Like, because of how the Pro League works, he proved handy in April, but then that's it. It's like, oh, and that's part of the problem you find with quite a few of these teams. If they've not got anything to play for during like the close season, it makes it a lot harder to kind of like work with. So it's like, that's why you end up like looking at Ghent, Club Bruges, Anderlecht. Like, we had Ramen. We ended up doing like a weird trade to get Ramen somehow. It was baffling, and we didn't really want Ramen. We got him sold on for something else, and it was just funny. Standard Liège next season could be an interesting one. Like the likes of Matt Ritz and Patrick Horosovsky, like players like them, like, they're steady, but they're not always going to be the biggest earners for you. Hermans did a Holzhauser a couple of years ago for Sorare. When Holzhauser, what was it? It was like double digit goals and assists, and like Hermans kind of does that as well for people. And like, the problem is, it's like age. Like, folk will think, oh, 30, 31, do I really want that? Hulslager, like, and Matteo Mertens, these are like, as I said, I wouldn't be surprised next season, like Leuven's being like your cheaper end stack people run with, but it just comes down to form, I suppose, really, like anything. That's what we've all got to remember at the end of the day. The reason why I also emphasise Leuven is John Dagur Forstensen. I think there has been like talk of a few teams looking at him, and obviously plays for Leuven with 12 goals. That's why I jumped to the screen. And like, what helps his upside as well is that he plays for the national team, so even if you're buying him in general, like, what helps is that he has that upside of, he goes away for the international break as well, so he's not just always going to be a card that's just sitting in your gallery in an international break week. I've got no game, I can't use him. Wait, he actually plays, great, I can field him in 220 or 240. Gianni Bruno, another consistent, steady, dependable forward. Obviously Sorare does not have he does have an Anderlecht card, tell a lie. But yeah, no, it's I think I've pressed it too quick there for my own good. But yeah, like Fedira, maybe interesting upside. Hugo Coopers, another one that I know a few people like. I've had him for when it was back in the common days. He was steady, consistent and dependable, so couldn't fault that at all. But yeah, and there's like Antwerp will be an interesting one next season with them winning the league. How will they do on multiple fronts? So we move from the Pro League down to La Liga. Obviously the biggest challenge, if I'm brutally honest, is with the bigger names leaving the league, like your Benzema's and Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, who not only just takes their place, but who in the league is dependable to fall back on. Like goalie wise, Badia, as far as we believe, is staying with Elche, so he'll be ideal for Smartbank, which in turn helps for second division. Masip, I think, as far as I believe at the moment, would like to stay, but if a team in La Liga takes an interest, then he'd like to get a shout. Sorare, another steady, dependable goalie. Ledesma has interest in him, like despite Cadiz struggling. Obviously Oblak should be back for next season, so Garbage, I don't expect him to be remaining number one, but we'll see how that plays out. Aitor probably get more chance. Remro for Sociedad. Dimitrescu is sadly not great for Sorare. Dimitrovic and Rajkovic respectively for Mallorca and Sevilla, both steady, consistent goalies. Like Rajkovic is not really a 20 quid goalie. I'm surprised he is actually. Something like, yeah, he's more like 15 quid. But he didn't play like the last two games because they gave the chance to San Roman, but I think he's steady enough when he's been in net. Had a really good couple of games, especially the Cadiz and Valencia games when he stepped up. So, and he's got good upside on him at his age, so makes a big difference on that. Obviously, veteran goalies like Diego Lopez, as far as I believe, are retiring or retired now. Defensively, for me, I would say your kind of safer shouts are you're more likely to look at like Villarreal. Valencia surely can't be any worse this season. Sevilla's another one. Like, do they improve on last season because they've got the Champions League, but league form for basically 2/3 of the season was shocking, 1/3 was very impressive. Maffeo, good upside in him, very impressive last season, very consistent. David Lopez for Girona was consistent throughout. Celta Vigo surely can't do any worse, but their squad does have eyes on them for individual options. Cadiz, Espino's very consistent and very dependable for Sorare reasons, along with Sabali for Betis. So what you'd end up finding is it's one of these leagues where you could end up buying like Hermoso, Sabali, Pablo Maffeo, and then be like, oh, got like variety of options to fall back on and not feel not necessarily shortchanged, but if you know what I mean. Midfield wise, Dion Rodriguez, I'm not sure what his situation is, but veteran midfielder, very consistent for Mallorca this season. Santi has some eyes on him from bigger teams in the league. Very consistent and steady last season. Escalante, bright spark in their season for Cadiz. Same with Gumbau's. Like, some people are interested to see if he will end up back in the division or will he stay in the second division. One of Elche's bright spots, especially in like the last like stint of the season. Aymar, young midfielder with good upside in him as well. Vega's the interesting one for Celta as well. Tete Morente, talk with him. Does he stay in the second division or does he come back up in the top division? The question is then who takes him and will get enough game time to be a bright spark in their season. Canales hopefully can improve on last season. Wasn't as consistent as he would have liked, but still steady option nonetheless. Like Alvaro Garcia, another one is just kind of like steady. The Atletico midfield in general, I think is going to have a lot of work on it next season to help for Sorare reasons, because that's the one area that really lets them down. Like, despite Griezmann being the big positive, it's not so great in the midfield department, so it's worth keeping a note on that. Nicholas Jackson, does he get the transfer elsewhere? Because obviously he kind of burst on the scene this season. Like, to kind of illustrate how much he kind of burst on the scene, this is like what you kind of go by. It is non-existent for a couple months, and it's only really the last basically 6 to 8 weeks is where he kind of went on one from late April into June, like one Vallecano game being his bad game. So it's funny how like a month's worth of form and teams are like, oh, we want this player. I'm like, on 1 month's worth of form you suddenly think, oh, he's going to be class for your team, but you're willing to fork out like 25 million or whatever for him. It's like, yeah, sure, be my guest. And Aki Williams, just steady. Saigankov, teams are sniffing about on him after his impressive stint in the Spanish league, going from Ukraine at Dynamo Kiev over to here. And this was seen as like the weird transfer, like, because obviously from a Sorare perspective he could only really be used for like European games or international break, but the minute it came to Girona, pretty much very dependable, very consistent. Yes, he had that little cold spell in April, but very consistent throughout, and that's what has got teams kind of sniffing about. Angel Correa hopefully can improve a little bit on last season. Munayin, hopefully he can improve. Mariki, very steady, consistent, and Kubo obviously was player of the year. But Kubo, question is like, what happened with him next season? That's a big talking point with Sociedad and whatnot, because I think Kubo definitely has good upside. So go from there to Smartbank, next favourite division, probably one of my favourite divisions in the entire Sorare like spectrum. Goalie wise, main goalie that I like personally is Juan Soriano. Joaquin Esqueta is another one I quite like. Feminius, we had him for about a month or so. We got out of him. We got like 12.50 for one, and like 10.50 for the hour. We basically made like 150 profit, like just over 150 profit on one and a fiver on the other. But we bought them with the playoffs in mind. If they'd went up, I'd have probably kept maybe Carroll. Interesting if he stays at Burgos, there is eyes on him for next season. Like Las Palmas are interesting. If like Valles stays and gets a run, Severa should be steady. And the like Alaves are going to struggle defensively next season, if I'm brutally honest. But see how that one plays out. Like say Yanez and Soriano, they're priced just now. Like Yanez, if he does get the transfer back up, is what's going to make him interesting. But at the same time, it's people willing to pay that 10 to 15 quid for him now is what's the challenge. Soriano has probably got the most upside. I'm going to have a word with Mahi, see what we can sort out for a little deal, because like 10 quid in auction. Let me have a look, see if there's any in auction now. Nope, that's fine. It's all the same folk that have all the same cards that I go sniffing about for or kind of talk about to people. It's always the same folk that have them. Doesn't matter if it's Soriano or whoever. But yeah, that's kind of like Escandel. I'm not sure what his situation is. Albacete, they're another, I'm not sure. If it would be Altube or what's his face? Bernabe. I had to think there for a second. My brain kind of like I hadn't even got down to him when I was like, I know who I mean. Like some of the teams it's easier than others, but obviously don't touch like Mirandes, don't touch Lugo because they're down. But some of these teams at like Zaragoza, they're looking to spend good money to get back up, challenge up for promotion. Tenerife's going to obviously new manager to kind of determine their situation. If they'd found that middle bit of form, then because the end of the season form they kind of dipped at bad times, which went against them. Tenaglia obviously will be part of La Liga, so. But Tenaglia is very steady, consistent defender anyways, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes. The challenge with some of these defenders like Villanova, and people are looking at Andorra in particular for next season. They think they could be a threat now that they've got settled in the divisions. Like Villanova is kind of like the top shout. Who from their midfield. I had him briefly. When I get to midfielders, I'll probably spring out of me. But like the likes of Melo, another one I like. I'm going to try and get him probably this week. On 61 literally as we're talking. It has been cheaper, so I do know that. But like there is like some teams taking a sniff around them in France, so I've got to be a little wary. Like with Postigo, veteran defender, I've got to be wary if he stays, goes, whatever. Raul Navarro I'm just going to keep for now and just persevere. Same with the Albacete players like Jetty. Like Albacete in general I think are a good enough side if they can keep like Fuster and Dubicin and Higgino. They've got good depth to kind of challenge for promotion fully next season. They were probably the most consistent side in like the last 10-12 games, where they really looked like a team that was challenging to go up. Levante in general, it'll be interesting to see how the likes of the Frutos, Pepelu, Buldini, even like Cardenas and Robert and Alex Munoz, how they all do for next season. Miramon had him pretty much for the season. Corredera, probably one of the best players in the division when fit. Like we've had him a good few months now. This hot spell, that period in April where he pretty much was a difference maker for me in my teams. It makes all the difference. That's why, like, when I had him in Esqueta, like 240 second division Europe, it was making all the difference. De Blasis, as far as I believe he is going back to Argentina, it's like nearly signed, sealed, and delivered. Jonathan Vieira, stuck by Las Palmas, and even with that stint in China, but it'll be interesting to see how he does next season. Like, he is a good midfielder. Like, he's proven it in division before, so see how he can produce goods. Santander's going to be another interesting team in general. They actually really popped off like the end of last season. Once Esqueta actually, fun enough, came in net. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays. I've not found that midfielder that I'm thinking of for Andorra, so I'll quickly go to Andorra. I know when I see it, I know who I mean. Orellana, because we owned him for a while. We only sold him simply because he was like in and out of the team, which was annoying me because I'd bought him pre like winter break or something. I think it was or during the winter break, I can't remember. And as I say, he started off well for me. Like here, like he started off badly, had him there, and then it was like bad, like you get bad patches here and there. We accept that, but yeah, it's like hey ho. Forwards wise, Waldo, Rubio, Dubison, these are the two kind of like main forwards that I'm thinking next season could do well. Juan Otero, I'm intrigued to see how he does for Gijon. Some people are intrigued by the likes of Enric and Dauda Mohammed, or Mo Dauda or Dauda Mohammed, depending how you go about it. Like for me, I would say go for it. Like Waldo, like Borja, like Tenerife in general. I think next season a lot of people will be looking at. Pinchy is the interesting one for Mirandes, because does he go back to another team in this division, and if so, who? Like, because quite a few of these teams do need a potent goal scorer like a Burgos, for example, or Cartagena, because like, or Chuno, for example, when he was given a chance at times scoring, when he wasn't getting a chance, it's like what do you expect? I'm not getting a chance here. Baldini 255, I've got to watch because mine is like 295, so basically cheaper than him. It has literally on multiple occasions decided to be like, oh, I'm going to keep going cheaper. It's fine. Like Baldini is, like we'll rejig it here as we speak anyway. Oh, mine's just disappeared. Right, I'll quickly leave an extra thing for the video. I'll sort that later. Don't get too long. But yeah, so that's part. Like, obviously you're not going to go for like veteran forwards like Carlos Martinez or Yuri de Souza. From there, obviously MLS we've kind of covered in depth previously. Like the Premier League, I'm never a fan of the Premier League for Sorare. Like, I've not really enjoyed it. Obviously the big talking points from a goalie point of view is like Brighton, does Jason Steele get given the nod? But realistically you're still kind of looking at probably the likes of like David Raya. What chance, who does he go to next season? That is the big question. Does he go to Tottenham? for example? Does he take like Larisse's and Forster's spot? But like Leno, Alisson, for me, feel like the two goalies that I would probably stick with. Like Leno's the cheaper end, Raya's like the mid-tier end, Alisson is if money's no option. And that's kind of the problem you've got with the league. It's just a strange one. Like Josie Sa is another one of the like consistent goalies, but it's the challenge you're going to face with the Prem if you're trying to actually go for it. Defensively, same challenge. Obviously, you can't go Leeds, Leicester, or Southampton. Yanko's just creeping up and up and up now. He's like over a $5. Fair play. Obviously, Will Fish is not at Man United. He's, as far as we believe, back at Hibs, like very permanent or loan. We're not sure yet. Ethan Pinnock, anyways, is probably your most consistent defender from like the Prem to always kind of fall back on. Mark Quell is another one that's steady and consistent, but you're kind of toiling. Really, that's the challenge that I feel you have with the Prem. It's nobody's really consistent enough for a so rare reason, and it's part of the problem. So it's like you only end up having like quite a short Premier League list for like say goalies and defenders. Mids the same problems, where you go Easy, Elias, Harry Wilson, Pascal Gross is super consistent. Ward Prowse has been consistent despite Southampton's position. Douglas Luiz is another. Lerma, if you're willing to keep taking the bookings. Casemiro, another of the steady, consistent club. Xhaka obviously has been this season, but obviously can't go Ruben Neves because he's on his way to Saudi League. John McGinn's another one. Last couple of months has really shown good form. Brentford in general, Brentford, Brighton, they're kind of like your teams that you fall back on. If I'm personally honest, forward wise, it's all about like Haaland. We know that. So you say to yourself, if you can't go Haaland, then in more recent times, Awoniyi's proven to be a great addition for a lot of cheap teams. Callum Wilson is another that's been very steady, and that's when you're like, if you're wanting someone that's out with the big teams, but you struggle to say, so I can't justify £100 on Salah or Kane if budget's tight, because you've then got to say, so if I'm trying to build a Prem team that's like Premier League Pro, it's, you do end up saying, so Awoniyi is probably going to be your option that you'll actually end up falling back on, if I'm actually honest. Dango Ouattara, I'm intrigued how he might do next season. He has upside because of being under 23. Brian Mbeumo is probably got a front and centre role for next season for Brentford. See how his form goes. Serie A. I love how there's still tons of leagues to focus on, like Russia and whatnot, but this is how it's broken down. Goalies for Serie A in general, because French League 1 disappeared, Ligue 1 disappeared. Your goalie situation is pretty much built off of Providel, to be brutally honest. If you've not got Providel, Vanja, don't read into this 56. Like, he is a steady shot stopper, but he has spells where he does let you down badly. Like February was a disaster for a few folk that I know that had a the Cremonese game is the one game that torments a lot of people still to this day, and it's not even the Juventus game that ruined people, because people didn't. I was one that didn't even field him, I think, for that game week. But internationally, he's pretty much dependable as well. But yeah, it's Provedel for Lazio if budget is no option. If funds are a little bit tighter, then I'd probably go Falcone. Falcone and Skorupski are two other dependable goalies within the league. I feel confident about. Because obviously you don't really look at Mary, you don't look at Ochoa. The reason why you don't look at Mary is because, like, yes, he's dead. In fact, where is Mary? Have I went past him? Or has he not got a card minted? That might, he should have actually, because he is in the comments after all. Tatasarnu, quite a few folk are looking at him for next season. But yeah, that's the goalie situation. Provedel versus Falco and Di Gregorio is where to go from there. Defensively, don't obviously look at Cremonese or Spezia or Sampdoria, because obviously they're down. Izzo, like, for me, like, Monza were shrewd with a number of their buys and he was one of them. Haisage is steady. If he keeps his discipline. Calabria, just steady for so rare reasons, but like AC Milan kind of need to rely on him more. Ricardo Rodriguez still has a steady upside on him for his age and provides good set piece beneficial on him. Atalanta next season I think could be the one team a lot of people might look at for so rare next year, where it'd be like Jamitsi and Mela, or just the rest of the team in general, like Coop Miners and Paslic and whatnot. Like Remy Udan is definitely up there and kind of like one of the cheaper end options that you'd kind of fall back on. Like Salernitana, Kandreva just seems to just be super consistent for so rare. Like, fair play for anyone that actually has owned Kandreva cards this season. Like, apart from those two games that he missed for Fiorentina and Empoli, the last month he was steady. But for pretty much February to now, you had him in good form for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 games. So it's like, it keeps you going if you're trying to have a cheap option. That's the way to look at it. I wouldn't say build your team around them next season. Udinese started off the season hot and then fell away. Sassuolo, Matthias Henrique, I'm intrigued to see how he does next season alongside the likes of like Lewis Ferguson, Nikola Vlasic, how all those midfielders perform. Pessina, another one in that consistent club. Krunic and Zambo and Guisa, others that are steady consistent options. Same for Darun as well. Darun doesn't get as much love as he should at times, which it's became like a running meme for like years. Forwards wise, Berardi is like the top of the line for so rare. Like 73 is no joke. If funds are no option, then like that last month is so rare, because like the amount of people I've seen that had Berardi captained was funny, and they were like, oh, I've scored 91 initially, and that's before they factor in the multipliers and whatnot and the captain's bonus. So you're like, oh, I've got 100 and like the 91, they might have got, they forget to tell you that he's maybe at like 5% or 10% or whatever initially, and time you've got the multiplier on top, oh by the way he's at like 50, he's at 30% or 60%, oh by the way this is what he's scoring for me. Oh, just, it's like mockery. So it's like, if you've got 50-60 quid, then Berardi is like the start of the line, and then the challenge from there is who do you then next go for? Immobile, yes, his form dropped off at points last season. Sanabria actually had a very good season. Couldn't follow him. But Sanabria, Immobile, like the cheaper end, kind of like consider. Strefeza, like, yes, FIFA has a part in him, but will he be consistent next season? Good upside with his age, and a big part of, like, he'll be a big reason if Lecce do stay up next season. Atalanta forwards like Muriel and Zapata, age goes against them. Kind of same with Arnautovic as well, if I'm honest. And also like Felipe Anderson. Depends if he's consistent, not consistent, all that kind of stuff. Let me see if we get Smart Bank from here. Not Smart Bank, Turkish League. I shouldn't really cover the Turkish League too much because I'm not sure of what's going on with the teams that could obviously, a number of the teams obviously stepped down and whatnot because of the earthquake. Like it ruined a couple of the teams, so it makes it harder. But generally, teams are going to be built off of Muslera and David Jensen, like Istanbulspor. Right, oh, just came through just as I thought it wasn't. Then where is he? You've got like Gunok, and you also have Kakir from Trabzonspor as well, kind of like in your usual like dependable goalies within the division that you fall back on. Defensively, Bardaki, Osman Paza, Sari, like Bardaki just seems to just keep finding gears within the league. Like, fair play to the guy. Like Fenerbahce, Galatasaray, Besiktas, Trabzonspor, they're kind of like your bread and butter teams that everyone's going to pretty much build stacks off of, like whether it be Victor Nelson, Akayadin, Kadioglu, I said Bardaki. Pretty much defence pretty much builds itself. Midfield obviously, Arder Gurler is the one that everyone's like, oh my god, like Ozdiev is like one of your few non-big five, if you want to say, that people go for. Iseric for Kasim Paza, steady as well, oddly. Like, you know, what I find funny about Iseric is it's like, yes, he plays for Kasim Paza, but he's been super dependable like the last couple of months in the league, which makes all the difference. Even before then, it was like he wasn't really showing this form too often, but it's the last couple of months that's showed form. You say to yourself, oh, where was this like 6 months ago? But the interesting talking point really for a few players really is Maxim getting transferred from Gaziantep to Besiktas, and yeah, it gets in Fernandez, Visca, and even Fernando. They're kind of like different scales of dependability. Ruben Ribeiro had a period where he was like consistent and then just completely crashed hard. Pizzello, another one that's steady within the league since transferring from the MLS. Same for Karaka and Bacasitas as well. Forwards wise, basically your team is built up of Ener Valencia, Mbaye Digne, Bozok, Sam Larsson, even a Cardi if he stays, like, makes all the difference really. Like Abubakar, another one that's just steady. Mertens, even in his veteran years, is fine. So it's like there's like no shortage of real like options, even Milo Rashika. So it's like budget wise, you're not really struggling. It's more a case of what kind of fits like your budget really. Right, we'll just quickly cover. I'm trying to remember how it gets covered. Football League Championship. Thank you. We'll start with forwards. Obviously Burnley are up, Sheffield United are up, so it'll make it interesting for how the team like the likes of Millwall, Watford perform. Like Millwall's interesting because of Kevin Nisbet. How will he perform? If Coventry keep a lot of their team, how will they hold up? Like Volkswagen, I don't see getting as much game time personally. Zian Fleming has massive upside. There is talk of potentially going either to Eredivisie. So, but at the same time, even if he stays at Millwall, I think he will be the focal point of the team next season. Hamer, like Gaia Cares, has got teams sniffing about on him. Your biggest problem with the league, pardon me as well, is licensing. So you've only got a handful of teams to work with, so like Coventry, Norwich, Millwall, Watford, West, like unless West Brom have got. So you're kind of toiling. Eccles, Hamer. If O'Hare's fit for next season, he will prove a key option for people like Ryan Leonard's dependable. But this is like the challenge that you've really got with like even like I love how like Tommy Trivell came into Blackpool with a bit of hype and excitement, but it like went pretty not necessarily cold quickly, but just the way it is. Plus Norwich will be hoping to be doing a bit better than last season and being up there like they would like to be up where Coventry were, and or even then Sheffield United and challenge for promotion automatically. Porteous, yes, he played for Hibs, but obviously he's at Watford now, and he's like steady for so rare reasons. Cavacela, another one that's steady. But like Millwall, like pretty much out like Millwall, let me get this right, Millwall, Coventry and like Watford, you can like Millwall, Coventry, Watford, you can basically build a not bad stack. It's just a case of having the depth that covers the boundaries, and also with Leicester, Southampton and Leeds, the ones that have cards that are staying in the division, like Leicester for example, like Woodface for example, if he stays, does he prove an appealing option? For example, Angus Gunn is in most people's teams, and then you're kind of toiling goalie wise in the division because of like Backman I assume will stay, but it's like Angus Gunn pretty much makes up most teams, and then it's like Ben Wilson, George Long. Ben Wilson was like one of I think the top clean sheets in the division last season, like with him and Muric, so it's like you've got a real chance then out of that. But last division that we'll give major focus for now is Scottish Premiership, so you've just got to go Premiership. Obviously MLS and J League we've kind of touched on simply through showing what I've highlighted in other videos and streams and whatnot. But goalie wise, Liam Kelly is kind of like your bread and butter. I think goalie for the division. If budget, you can stretch it a little bit further, then Kel Roos. Samuel Walker, I'm not 100% sure if he'll still remain number one. Marshall was fine first half of the season, second half dipped a little bit, but as far as I believe just now will remain number one. Laidlaw, is steady. The problem is he does get a lot of shots at him, so like he's a good shot stopper in that respects. But it's the amount of goals he concedes. Like if you were to do like a ranking of the division, like you'd probably go Liam Kelly is 1, Kilroos maybe 2, Laidlaw 3, Carson 4th. Like Clark's just not worth it for 20 quid if I'm brutally honest. Even Hart's not really worth it for 25, but if you can get it for 20 quid, I suppose you've got half a chance. But other than that, you've not really got any other goalies that really get game time in the division, so you've got your options are quite not short, but you know what to expect. Defensively, Hanlon will make up a lot of teams, I suspect, next season, despite his veteran age, and people hope, some Hibs fans kind of wishing he could get dropped. If Ikoviti stays in Scotland, he has, if I'm honest, the likes of like Livy Hibs might come sniffing about and saying, right, Mon, let's give you a chance. Lewis Miller has interesting upside for next season if he can get a prolonged run, because he showed glimpses of his ability, which got fans really excited, especially since Cadden's out for the season. So yeah, that like right back position for Hibs is certainly, right back to kind of like right wing back is certainly up for debate. Like Liam Scales, as far as we believe, is in with Dan. Like I think Dan Casey is the same kind of situation with Motherwell. Both teams can't, I think, afford to keep them on, and it's like in Liam Scales' case, does he go back to Celtic and get a chance, or in Dan Casey's case, does he stay in Scotland or does he go down to England? So it's that kind of challenge. Like Celtic defenders, I don't really see. Like Celtic just now is a tricky one. Like who stays, who goes. Like Starfeld, Hatate, O'Reilly. Like Greg Taylor's probably the one that everyone might expect to stay. Jan Danda. If you're a non-Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, Motherwell stacker, is the one that intrigues the most amount of people, because does he stay there, does he go elsewhere, if so, where does he go? Like last season, he kind of probably showed at times that he's maybe a wee bit better than Ross County. Put him in a top 6 team, then he might have half a chance. Dundee United wise, Jamie McGrath, Dylan Levitt, from a midfield point of view, people assume they will both go. In a case of where do they go, Bluespittle, steady for Motherwell, another one of those, handy for like Motherwell stacks. Same with Sean Goss, but like for St Mirren fans, O'Hara, Strain, some folk think that they may go elsewhere. Question is who takes them and where. Joe Newell, another of the steady, consistent players for Hibs, and even in at 3 quid, you're not really breaking the bank during the season. Like he is up in values, there is no denying, and if he's producing 50+ point games all the time and pushing 60, then it makes all the difference. As I say, McGrath, Harks, Levitt, they're the kind of 3 that everyone's keeping an eye on. Where do they go? And as I say, Tatai, he's got defensively and midfield cards. Cantwell will intrigue a few people. Will he be a big part of the team next season and deliver the goods along with like Raskin, for example? Leighton Clarkson's signed on with Aberdeen, so see how he performed along like Ramdani, Majowski, Duck. Like Duck and Majowski both have like teams sniffing about for them. Van Veen, does he go to Groningen? Does he stay in Scotland? Does he go to Aberdeen? Yeah, there's a big debate with him, so see how that one goes. Curtis Main, some people think he will either go lower leagues of England or stay maybe in Scotland, but case of who does he go to? Ginelli, if he stays in England, Scotland, like Hearts, does he become a focal point, or do they look elsewhere? Jordan White, steady, consistent in the division, will do the job for any of the bottom six, if I'm honest. Same like Murray, if he can get a run out, has a chance at that as well. Barry Mackay, I think people are expecting a wee bit more from next season. Yutaro Oda, Japan fans are hoping that he can actually get a prolonged run out next season. Then from there, for like other forwards that people, not necessarily a dependable case, but it's more maybe expecting a bit more from next season. Maybe from Suwon, might get a more prolonged run out depending like what happens with Kyoto, with Jota and Kyogo and Maeda next season. Joel Nubel, big part of Livy's attack, and I think I'll be expecting him to produce more of the goods next season. Well, Shankland, Ellie Yuan and Kyle Vassell, equally for Hearts, Hibs and Killie, all dependable. Ellie Yuan myself I'm trying to still get, but for me he is certainly one forward that is dependable, and I think next season could easily get double figures for goals and assists. He was just shy of it this season, but definitely good upside in him. But no, there's definitely good depth across like a lot of leagues and a lot of teams to kind of do people proud. But as I said, if you've got any questions on this at all, folks, you can ask me on Twitter, YouTube, Discord, whatever platform you watch or get any content from. As I said, I'll tidy this up and get this up on YouTube, so it's like covers everything. So like as I said, like next season everyone's kind of got like a clearer idea of basically top 5 leagues, Challengers Europe, under 23s, second division Europe, because obviously like Calcio B, Serie B, sorry, is the only like one we haven't really covered, and that's simply because of like the challenge with there is kind of like the licensing, who stays within the league, who doesn't, because that's part of your problem you find is, and like that is the challenge you've got with Serie B, where you can't really trust to go that league for anyone really. That's like, you see yourself, like unless you're someone that's collecting every card in So Rare for like say limited or whatever, or rares or whatever, but that's kind of why I didn't really cover Serie B, because it's in essence really a minefield to work with for licensing, so you're kind of like, you've just got to say to yourself, can't really touch it. But as I said, thought just quickly touch on that just briefly, but as I said, I'll tidy this up so that way it's all up and hopefully covers every question for people, and it's plenty to kind of delve through really for different leagues, and people can go at their own pace and take notes, and if they've got questions at a later date as well, they can just ask. But hopefully you find this all useful, folks. Have a good one, and I will speak to you all later.